there's been several people already removed from their trees quite violently, as well as the people on the ground being wrestled out of lock-ons. Don't know how long we're going to be here, but we're going to try and stay as long as we can. It's been quite emotional. I've just had so many messages, and I want to say thank you to everybody who messaged. I just had a very emotional phone call with a very dear friend. So I'm not going to read every bit, but I want to read some of the fantastic Mr. Fox. One last time, the sun's coming through the trees. This wood, despite all the violence and destruction today, it's still beautiful. So, if you'll indulge me, Chapter 2, Mr. Fox. On a hill above the valley there was a wood. In the wood there was a huge tree. Under the tree there was a hole. In the hole lived Mr. Fox and Mrs. Fox and their 4 small foxes. Every evening, as soon as it got dark, Mr. Fox would say to Mrs. Fox, "Well, my darling, what shall it be today? A plump chicken from Boggis, a duck or a goose from Bunce, or a nice turkey from Bean?" And when Mrs. Fox told him what she wanted, Mr. Fox would creep down the valley in the darkness of the night and help himself. Boggis and Bunce and Bean knew very well what was going on, and it made them wild with rage. They were not men who liked to give anything away. Less still did they like anything to be stolen from them. So every night, each of them would take the shotgun and hide in a dark place somewhere on his own farm, hoping to catch the robber. But Mr. Fox was too clever for them. He always approached a farm with the wind blowing in his face. And this meant that if any man was lurking in the shadows ahead, the wind would carry the smell of the man to Mr. Fox's nose from far away. Thus, if Boggis was hiding behind his chicken shed, house number 1, Mr. Fox would smell him out from 50 yards off and quickly change direction, heading for chicken house number 4 at the other end of the farm. "Dang and blast that lousy beast," cried Boggis. "I'd like to rip his guts out," said Bunce. "He must be killed," cried Bean. "But how?" said Boggis. "How on earth can we catch the blighter?" Bean picked his nose delicately with a long finger. "I have a plan," he said. "You've never had a decent plan yet," said Bunce. "Shut up and listen," said Bean. "Tomorrow night we will all hide just outside the hole where the fox lives. We will wait there until he comes out. Then, bang! Bang, bang, bang!" "Very clever," said Bunce. "But first we shall have to find the hole." "My dear Bunce, I've already found it," said the crafty Bean. "It's up in the wood on the hill. It's under a huge tree." Chapter 3, The Shooting. "Well, my darling," said Mr. Fox, "what shall it be tonight?" "I think we'll have duck tonight," said Mrs. Fox. "Bring us 2 fat ducks, if you please, 1 for you and me, and 1 for the children." "Ducks it shall be," said Mr. Fox. "Bunce's best." "Now do be careful," said Mrs. Fox. "My darling," said Mr. Fox, "I can smell those goons a mile away. I can even smell them one from the other. Boggis gives off a filthy stink of rotten chicken skins, Bunce reeks of goose livers, and as for Bean, the fumes of apple cider hang around him like poisonous gas." "Yes, but just don't get careless," said Mrs. Fox. "You know they'll be waiting for you, all 3 of them." "Don't you worry about me," said Mr. Fox. "I'll see you later." But Mr. Fox would not have been quite so cocky had he known exactly where the 3 farmers were waiting at that very moment. They were just outside the entrance of the hole, each one crouching behind a tree with his gun loaded. And what is more, They had chosen their positions very carefully, making sure that the wind was not blowing from them towards the fox's hole. In fact, it was blowing in the opposite direction. There was no chance of them being smelled out. Mr. Fox crept up in the dark tunnel to the mouth of his hole. He poked his long, handsome face out into the night air and sniffed once. He moved an inch or two forward and stopped. He sniffed again. He was always especially careful when coming out of his hole. He inched forward a little more. The front half of his body was now in the open. His black nose twitched from side to side, sniffing and sniffing for the scent of danger. He found none, and he was just about to go trotting forward into the wood when he heard something, or thought he heard something. He thought he heard a tiny noise, a soft rustling sound, as though someone had moved a foot ever so gently through a patch of dry leaves. Mr. Fox flattened his body against the ground and lay very still. His ears pricked. He waited a long time, but he heard nothing more. It must have been a field mouse, he told himself, or some other small animal. He crept a little further out of the hole, then further still. He was almost right out into the open, and took a last careful look around. The wood was murky and very still. Somewhere in the sky, the moon was shining. Just then, his sharp night eyes caught a glimpse of something bright behind a tree not far away. It was a small silver speck of moonlight shining on a polished surface. Mr. Fox lay still, watching it. What on earth was it? Now it was moving. It's coming up and up. Good heavens, it's a barrel of a gun. Quick as a whip, Mr. Fox jumped back down into his hole, and at the same instant the entire wood seemed to explode around him. Bang, 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 bang. The smoke from the three guns floated upward in the night air. Boggis and Bunce and Bean came out from behind their trees and walked towards the hole. "Did we get him?" said Bean. One of them shone a flashlight in the hole, and there on the ground, in the circle of light, half in and half out of the hole, lay the poor, tattered, blood-stained remains of a fox's tail. Bean picked it up. "We got the tail, but we missed the fox," he said, tossing the thing away. Now, while I've been talking, they brought a large crane into the edge of the woodland. So I'm going to stop there, and I may resume a little bit later. If you get time today, dig out your copy of Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl, and you'll see how prescient it is. It's about greed, it's about violence, and it's about the ugliness of human nature. And unfortunately, a lot of that is reflected in the construction and implementation of HS2. So I'm going to leave it there for now. But thanks for listening. Please share, and I'll speak to you soon.